Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Did some research on yourself, managing partner at Bread and Butter Ventures, based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Um, Tell me a little bit about yourself. You're 15 years inside Google and how you got started with Bread and Butter.
Well, Johan, thanks for having me on the show. I'm a big fan of your work and appreciate the opportunity to chat. And yes, as you said, so my name's Mary Grove. I am managing partner at Bread and Butter Ventures, and just thrilled to be, working in pursuit of building a venture capital firm from the Midwest to support and invest in founders nationally in a few key sectors. And so the story of Bread and Butter and the story of how I came to the work, just to back up a bit. So my background has always been in tech and kind of early stage investing. I was really lucky to grow up in a scrappy immigrant entrepreneur family where my parents both immigrated separately from Thailand to the US in search of economic opportunity and a chance to build for the family they would go on to create and the family that they were providing for back home. And it was inspirational to grow up in this environment. My parents both had backgrounds in healthcare as well, and my mom was an operating room nurse for 25 years. My dad ran a clinic, and um, growing up in that environment too informed a lot of the work that I get to do today. So fast forward, I went to college. I studied at Stanford, and was very serendipitously in the backyard of tech in Silicon Valley at a really interesting time and a pivotal moment. So I was lucky to get to join Google right out of school, and thought I would go for 1 year on the way to law school, but that ballooned into just shy of 15 years when I
Mm.
left, and it was a great adventure. So really got to work on a few things from the IPO deal team when the company went public in 2004, and then worked in a team called New Business Development, helping incubate new product partnerships and work on emerging market expansion for about 7 years. And then got to help build what is called today the Google for Startups organization, which is looking at how does Google leverage its time, its talent, its technology, financial resources to really fuel the next generation of Googles to be built, launch, and grow. So that was chapter one, and really where I grew my deep love for working with very early stage companies, number one. And number two, this concept that we have an opportunity to democratize access to capital in more places and look at emerging markets, whether that's across the United States or across the world. And that has been, I'd say, a through line of the work.
I love that perspective because an emerging market could be within nationally within borders of a certain country. With a country as big as the US, you could consider a state like Minnesota emerging market, right? And you don't really have to leave the borders of the country.
Emerging in so many senses of the word, right? There's so much opportunity. You're absolutely right. And a lot of when I was at Google, a lot of my work was in emerging markets internationally, right? In the Middle East. I spent a lot of time there, for example, which was such a highlight. But in the US, you're right. And if you talk about the democratization of access to capital, for example, still today, 75% of venture capital dollars from a funding perspective still go to three markets: Silicon Valley, New York, and Boston. So if you look at
Okay.
every other ecosystem, by definition, is emerging in that sense.
Yeah.
And I say so with a great degree of optimism about the possibility because I chose to physically move from Silicon Valley in New York, where I'd spent 20 years, to the middle of the country and to be building our firm and our family here has just been such a wildly interesting ride. And so I'm excited to talk more about that. But our whole thesis is rooted in exactly that. It's capitalizing on these markets that are hidden,
Hmm.
gigantic global opportunities.
You can't imagine. No, you and I are family people. You have kids, I have kids.
Right.
You can't imagine some of these young founders starting and raising a family in downtown San Francisco, could you?
I can imagine doing it everywhere, right? But the circumstances are very different. And I think
Yeah.
one of the things that Minnesota too, where my chosen home state now, is consistently rated one of the top places in the country to raise a family, in fact. And there's a lot of things going for us here, but I think ultimately it's that sense of community, but from the perspective of building a company,
Hmm.
markets like Minnesota and many others around the country, one of the biggest draws is the capital efficiency of building a business in a market like this, right? It's just talent is more affordable,
Hmm.
cost of living is more affordable, the cost of office space is more affordable. Some of the fundamental pillars of building give you a huge advantage.
Now that you're seeing like a lot of the capital go to San Francisco with the AI boom, does that is that hard for you to see leaving there? And yeah, how do you make that counter case to the people and to the founders that you want to build for you?
Well, I would say that it's not that the capital is leaving to go to San Francisco. It's never left San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
It's been concentrated there. And you're right. A lot of the new funds that are emerging are, AI focused funds. So are we. And I think it's a good thing that there's more, more activity, more funding happening in general. And I really don't see borders, if you will. So from a bread and butter ventures perspective, for example, we invest nationally in companies in three focus areas. So food tech, which is the tech stack of the global food supply chain, digital health, which is the tech infrastructure and tech enabled care delivery side of digital health. And then the third is vertical SaaS. So enterprise SaaS more broadly, especially focused on supply chain, manufacturing, future of work. And the reason we've chosen those three sectors, one, it maps to our team's expertise and backgrounds, but two, I think equally important point, it maps to the enterprise backbone in Minnesota, which before I moved here, I really didn't know. Minnesota is home to the highest concentration of Fortune 500 companies per capita in the nation, and companies that you know and are really familiar with, ranging from Ecolab, Cargill, General Mills, Target, 3M, Mayo Clinic, Hormel. You think about Securian Financial, all headquartered here, right?
Hmm.
Global companies, but headquartered here. We have an unfair advantage in helping companies access market, go to market more quickly by leveraging that. So my counter argument or my pitch, if you will, when we're talking with founders or talking with LPs about investing in the firm, in the funds, it's that we really aren't trying to replicate Silicon Valley and build the next Silicon Valley. We are trying to build in the heart of America, in the middle of the country,
Hmm.
in these durable, built to last industries from the ground floor. And it makes
Right.
total sense to me having seen both. And I have no anti Silicon Valley sentiment. I absolutely love it. I grew up there professionally, and I think there's so much merit to it. And equally, I think there's so much merit, just to speak to our own state now, to building unique moats and unique advantages in ecosystems like the Midwest.
One of the moats that I see right away is that your go-to-market strategy, because of the connected network that you have in the Midwest there with those big companies, you could really take innovative technology and find a market really instantaneously if you have a good network, right? Am I wrong on that?
You can access one of the beautiful things that we've built is, how does bread and butter leverage this Minnesota advantage that I speak of? We've done so by building formally what we call the bread and butter innovation circle, which is 19 enterprise partners, large Fortune 500, large enterprise partners, formally working with bread and butter, with our companies and with each other, right, in support of early stage innovation. And you're absolutely right, Johan, that the flywheel of getting insights from industries, getting top-down insights on what are their strategic priorities, pain points, what's around the corner, marry that with bottoms-up trends on what are we seeing. We're seeing 2,500 deals top of funnel per year. We're really being able to aggregate themes around what's the pulse right now from the ground
Hmm.
floor in both directions. So, for example, in healthcare, thinking about um, the urban rural access challenge, thinking about how to enable care delivery at high quality for more people in more places, thinking through remote patient monitoring, chronic care management has been a huge topic. For example, food as medicine and addressing long-term health through food at the core is another big theme that's emerging. We're seeing that both from the healthcare side and from the big enterprise side on the food side, which is really interesting. From a supply chain perspective, we're seeing tremendous use cases for leveraging AI to do
Hmm.
everything from forecast planning to demand planning to responding to RFPs to managing, customer contracts. And a lot of the automation that we've been talking about for years is really kicking in, but we're able to access from, level zero, if you will, from the ground floor, much more quickly, no matter where the companies are based. Being able to work with the corporations here is a big, big advantage.
Yeah, and it's like having pragmatic use cases. It's there was a meme that I saw. It was Canada specific, but the the Alberta, part of it was very uh thinking about profit and an actual business, whereas the coasts were more up in the sky, um, with weird use cases. But in the Midwest, it kind of mirrors that to the Alberta approach. It's like it's very pragmatic. You have businesses that are real businesses with real global markets. And if you can apply your latest and greatest tech there, like that is the use case that's going to scale, right?
And it's real people solving real problems in tangible industries,
Yeah.
often bootstrapped because they have had to. And so you can find these very generational, profitable businesses building in steel manufacturing, for example.
Hmm.
And, you know, it feels like the best kept secret, but it is really the through line of those bread and butter, if you will, sectors of the modern economy. And we have seen so much trying to build this permeable membrane between these titans of industry and the emerging tech in their verticals. I'll give you, a recent example of how we have worked with industry. We we just led the round of our newest healthcare investment, a really exciting company called Q Rounds that happens to be based in Minnesota, and they've built a communication platform that is utilized in hospital settings to do two things. One, it optimizes the physician queue of inpatient rounds when the doctor does the rounds in the morning. And at two, it answers that ever important age old question, when will the doctor be here for the family? So providing time transparency of, okay, Mary's in the queue for 9:45 is her rounding time. Do you, as my family member, want to RSVP to join in person? Do you want to join virtually? Oh, the doctor got pulled into a meeting. Now that time is pushed out to 10:45. It's a health equity play too, in terms of who has access to be at the bedside. Not everybody can be at the bedside of their loved one for, let's say, a month. And so it actually allows family members to join and provides real-time language support if that's needed. And so we talk about the workflow optimization on the one hand, it's vertical SaaS, healthcare SaaS. From a patient experience perspective, it's game-changing and it's super intuitive. And so with Dr. Mike Pitts, the founder and CEO of the company, we met him a few years back when it was an early idea and earlier than Bread and Butter would invest. And we stayed in touch, but they were reintroduced to us via Fairview Health System, one of our partners on the enterprise side, who had been deploying Q rounds internally for over 2 years and resurfaced it for us saying, hey, the ROI data here, the outcome data is incredibly compelling. It's worth, taking a look as they think about the round of funding. So we ended up reconnecting, being blown away by what they're building, and led their seed round earlier this year. So as an example of keeping that relationship and then also validating with industry early, and now trying to lean in to help them scale nationally, Q rounds across the country.
You have a very big insight into this. Are we in an AI bubble? Like, are we seeing valuations at the seed level too high? What do you think?
I think that we are in an AI bubble, absolutely. I don't think we're near the peak of the bubble. And I think AI, in a sense, is an adjective across building companies or operating or working and adapting to this environment. So there are some pure native AI companies, absolutely. And then there is the adjective across every company, I think, needs to understand where they are in the AI continuum and have a look around the corner perspective on that and being able to articulate that in sales meetings with customers, with investors, with potential investors. And the strategy can actually be, we're not embracing AI. We maybe use it internally to optimize our efficiency, but we're not an AI native company. I do think that, yes, you're seeing a lot of the coastal in particular, you know, idea on paper, huge valuation out the gate that we saw in a little bit in 2021 too. And we've seen in previous cycles. But our approach is a fewfold. One, absolutely try to remain fluent, current, educated, testing, building, shipping stuff as a team internally to experiment. Two is trying to, you know, do lean into tech diligence too when we invest in AI companies, which we absolutely do. And then three is work with a portfolio, as I alluded to earlier, to understand what what are the AI components of their strategy, and then how does that help or hurt our pitch. And I would argue, I'm a healthcare investor where I spend most of my time investing in B2B technology that sells into health systems, health plans, provider networks. We're in the early innings from an enterprise level adoption still. And some of the companies currently having the most success are not leaning into AI.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's part of it is understanding the timing curve and where and when that's going to land when you have long enterprise sales cycles. So thinking about absolutely dreaming about tomorrow and the future, but also being very pragmatic about what's the business today.
I guess, and real benefit to the patients, real benefit to the doctors, and how this technology can actually help. That's an interesting perspective. Were you around for the .com bubble? Do you take well, you don't have to answer that question. It might age
I
you.
was alive. Yeah. I was in college. And here's the thing. So I graduated, I joined Google in 2004 as I, joined as that year the company was going public. And so I have enjoyed for most of my career in tech. We've been in a really strong market minus the 08, 09, the financial crisis, the housing crisis. And that time I was working at Google. So from a venture perspective, we've been enjoying a pretty long run of market conditions. And that's
Hmm.
changed. That's a general statement. I think within specific sectors, things have transformed a lot in the last 6 years with the pandemic as well. Think about, we invest in the food system and in healthcare. And there are actually tremendous tailwinds for both of those industries coming through the pandemic. A lot of investments in telehealth and infrastructure, a lot of investments in supply chain, a lot of investments in, some of the emergency protocols where regulations were momentarily suspended, for example, in telehealth, right? Reimbursements were flowing. A lot of innovation could be tested during that time, actually. So I feel like we're always, it's always cyclical. But if you go back and look at the markets from a returns perspective, the venture fund vintages coming out of those cycles performed extraordinarily well from
Hmm.
the .com, the 08, 09, and even coming out of the pandemic. And so I'm hopeful and confident. It's a great market to be building a company, but also to be investing from a venture perspective.
Yeah, and those definitely give you a lot of perspective, and you're just not too focused on one thing. You can see the trends over long term, which I bet is a great skill to have as a VC.
Well, and what
Um,
was your experience in that time, if you from a venture perspective?
oh man, I just remember going down the stairs at my local mall and seeing Bill Gates on the TV talking about Encarta CDs, and how encyclopedias on disc were the next big thing. And then there was a small kiosk with the internet being demoed on a Netscape Navigator browser, with Mr. Starchy Tuberhead. And like it was like the formation 96, 97, the formation of the internet right there, and how people viewed it differently. Even a titan like Bill Gates, and how they pivoted too with Internet Explorer. But it, it's just a great. It was so hypey, very hypey at the time. You had the word internet, or you had the word web in your name. It was people playing stocks. It felt very similar to nowadays.
It really
But
does. Now the joke is, do you just get the .ai domain, right? I mean, it truly feels, so while I was still in school in that cycle, having lived through and being at Google through the kind of the mobile revolution, cloud computing, quantum, now AI, it does feel like a different era fundamentally has shifted. And, I have 9-year-old twins, and experiencing the world and introduction to tech through their lens, through their eyes, it is a completely different. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we were in their age, and it fundamentally feels like lifetimes ago. And I think there are positives and negatives, but really just trying to, I would say, embrace, but also embrace with caution, right? We
hmm
much invest in tech that has human in the loop or human at the center.
hmm
When you speak about healthcare specifically, I fundamentally believe that the applications of AI to healthcare will be the most important
Yeah.
applications of our lifetime. And I'm really excited about it. And the caution comes from it's patient lives at stake, right? And so when in our work with health systems, and health plans, we think through that continuum of applications of AI on the front end to infrastructure, the administrative back end, operational efficiency as one bucket. Then we think about the application of AI to augment things like clinical decision support, where ultimately human is at the center still. And then optimizing care delivery, right? And
hmm
personalized medicine, and the ability to harness the power of data, which we all know to be so powerful, but so many healthcare organizations simply cannot utilize the treasure trove of data that they have. It's unstructured. There isn't a team internally to support it. And so we've made investments in companies like NimbleMind AI as an example,
hmm
multimodal data platform specifically for clinical healthcare data, to really harness the power of it and to standardize it and to utilize it and to be able to train LLMs with it. And so I do think that's the next frontier, and we want to be here on the early side.
Yeah, no, I seen an article recently about how AI is helping diagnose things earlier, curing things earlier. It's really amazing how this is helping. Um, do you think, going back to the macro level, like, do you think AI is as big as the internet or bigger in a way?
Gosh, that's a great question. I wish I had a crystal ball. I think it I think it could be. It does feel
hmm
like we've entered a new era, and it's happening fast. I have a lot of, there's I have concern, for example, about the environmental impact and some of the longer term elements that we are talking about as front and center right now. But I do think, and just robotics in general too, has been an area
hmm
that we've spent a lot of time investing in, specifically currently with respect to our food tech investing and the supply chain and restaurant tech, right? We have an awesome company called X Robotics that is robotics and automation for within the restaurant setting, and they're live with within the pizza preparation line, for example, at restaurants. And just thinking through that future where it feels like, it was a movie 10 years ago, and we're actually seeing from a supply chain, logistics, manufacturing, a lot is happening from the automation side. So I do think it is the next frontier of how we think about labor, of how we think about workforce, of how we think about communication. And I'm very cognizant too that I feel fortunate to be in that generation that I think will have experienced and bridge both analog, digital, and I don't know if you look at
Yes,
AI, it's third category, right? We had the
I
VHS
heard of this.
all
You
the
must be
way.
Gen X.
Is
You
that,
must be
I don't
Gen
know
X. Yeah.
yeah. So it's a fascinating time to be alive.
Hey, you know what? We might even be the first generation or one of the generations to also go to spacefaring as well. Like, who knows? Like, this, we still have many years left, right?
I know. I know.
And on that note, it's like you see all of this abundance in terms of intelligence, in terms of digitization, in terms of our knowledge. Everything is just kind of like exponentially going up. Even scientific discoveries, human productivity. what do we do with all of it? It's just a small little world that we're on. We're on a small pale blue dot here. Um, I know what I think's going to happen. What are your thoughts? Like, what happens to us as a race, as a civilization?
You think you know what's going to happen?
Oh yeah, I know what's going to happen.
What's going to happen?
We're going to be multiplanetary. I think that's the whole thing. Like we have a lot of abundance in terms of like I said, all of those different things, probably energy very soon. And the only thing left is just to leave this planet and do something else with it. I'm not going personally. I like the Earth, but some other people can go.
I think it's very likely that there absolutely is life within other ecosystems. I mean, that it's just a mathematical probability. I've been really focused lately on trying to be, I think because of this massive shift of digitization so rapidly, I've actually been, and while leaning into that as much as possible, also trying to lean back into the humanity and the human connection
Yeah.
side and the mindfulness side and the, and trying to raise great humans too,
Hmm.
just really has made it so poignant, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think in the, because of growing up at Google professionally all those years, I've always hoped to be, such an early adopter and on the aggressive side of all of that. And I remember, my husband was really early at YouTube, and he built out the news and politics team there too. The first time that YouTube was used in a presidential election was the '08 presidential race. And,
Hmm.
was the hope and promise of what the internet, what social media could be in these contexts. And you fast forward, a couple decades later, and you see how that has evolved right into the fake news and some of the challenges of we build so rapidly that sometimes the community parameters around that or the regulatory framework around that isn't built in parallel. And so I think it's trying to step back amidst all the excitement and actually think at a systems level, to your point, about what are the long-term implications and what do we need in place to navigate that thoughtfully before it is a disaster to fix.
Hmm. Yeah, it's an exciting time to be alive. What keeps you and I really did like that point that you had about um human centered and AI is really giving people the opportunity to say, do you embrace parts of humanity? You know, like, do you cherish it even? And I think I have a thesis of why, like, the TCG market, the comic market, the collectibles market is doing really well because these are artifacts of human sort of like culture, um, and it's just people equate it with like on a human level, right? Like they've played games with Pokemon and Magic and all of these different comics, and that's why it's going nuts right now. So that's kind of like my thesis on why that is.
I think there's this has been the summer of, or the spring of, nostalgia for the '90s.
Hmm.
The big trend of everything from fashion to just the whole concept that if we arranged to meet for lunch at noon, you either show up or you didn't. If I'm running 10 minutes late, I can't just text you and tell you. You have to wait there and wait it out and figure out, do you leave? Do you not? And, just that the beauty of that too, the
Yes.
serendipity and I think there is a nostalgia for those of us who experienced that time frame. And it's well, it's interesting just to see, will we revert to that a bit more over the coming years.
It's funny you mentioned that because that's how I met my wife. I had a date with her and I was, I don't know, 20 minutes late and she just decided to stick around because she was
He was intrigued.
um well, she was intrigued, but also like it took her a long bus ride to get there. So it's like, I'll stick around and she could have gone, she could have left and take another bus and go back, but she stuck around and that was very human element right there.
It was meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, I thank you so much for coming on. The last thing I wanted to ask you on was like you you had supported so many entrepreneurs at Google. You now have your own firm. What are you excited about moving forward and what kind of companies you're invested in? And lastly, what are some of the pains that you experience being out of major markets like you just mentioned?
Sure. Some of the things I'm excited about, there's such a sense of, and the business model of venture, right, is 100%. It's financial return. We know the business model, and we're laser focused on that. And I believe, I feel so fortunate that the sectors that we have chosen to invest in, that we get to invest in every day, are some of the most fundamentally important problems for humanity around the food supply chain, around healthcare, around the future of the planet. I truly feel it's a joy and a privilege and an intellectual gift, frankly, to see thousands of opportunities a year, and then ultimately to roll up the sleeves and go deep with dozens. And we have 85 companies in the portfolio currently. And I could, talk your ear off all day long about some of these solutions and the power of a company that I was meeting, earlier today with Caitlin Christine, the founder and CEO of Gabby, one of our portfolio companies in women's health. And Gabby is a virtual breast specialist helping women understand their risk assessment and ultimately drive early detection of breast cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and using an AI powered algorithm, right? And have already driven detections that have saved lives. And when that's the goal, I mean, it's so fundamentally. So I'm really excited about the application of AI in this next era to problems like that, and to some of these most fundamental problems that are, at the end of the day, data challenges in many ways. And so, expect to see us continue to be super active in these areas, and think about, as we usher in the next wave of manufacturing, of supply chain, a lot of these industries are operating with analog infrastructure. And then that shift to digital is transforming over the next, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years. And so ventures is well positioned for that. So that's one. Two, to your question about, I love being in the underdog, kind of swimming against the current a bit too, if you will. And what we're trying to do from a venture perspective and the business model, that's not new. What is new is volitionally choosing, is identifying, I think, opportunity, going there and trying to unlock it and harness it nationally from a
Mm-hmm.
specific place. And that's where I feel we're in the early innings still of our bread and butter thesis around this Minnesota home field advantage and our innovation circle with our 19 partners. We're 6 years into that strategy now of building and leveraging that corporate network. And I'm so excited because I really think that is the bread and butter, if you will, of the team and our work. It's, how do we create that flywheel back of industry, companies being built, selling into industry, exiting, doing it again. And we have the opportunity of our lifetime, and it's sitting right here. So my call to action, to folks, whether that be LP capital, founders, and an interesting stat. So we've raised, we're deploying out of our fourth fund now. Collectively, it's almost evenly split. About half our LP capital is from Minnesota-based limited
Okay.
partners, and about half is from coast to coast, and from Boston to the Bay Area, everything in between. And I really like that, because I think that, we aren't trying to build in a silo. We aren't investing in companies only based here. We aren't investing in companies that only serve Minnesota or the Midwest market. What we are trying to do is to shine a light on these incredible opportunities. And we absolutely invest in Silicon Valley, New York, and Boston, 100%. We think that, opportunity is everywhere, and to try to build those networks of helping companies who are based in the middle of the country access capital,
Mm-hmm.
access partners on the coast. It's really to build that one giant impactful ecosystem. So it's been great, but it is a challenge when there isn't the same density here. We have phenomenal
Mm-hmm.
companies being built here who often will move to the coast, right, when they hit Series A or B or C. And while I think that, that has made sense historically, because you go where the capital is, I think less and less it's making sense, because investors are investing everywhere. You're making decisions virtually. You're supporting
Yeah.
companies virtually. It's not about the 50-mile drive radius anymore. So I'm really excited about the new frontier.
Yeah, and it seems like I just picked up on it, but like you seem to be doing a lot for women's health, which is like, a lot of it's chronically been underfunded, in certain ways. I talk to other founders like that, serving that ecosystem, moms, who apparently are well, not apparently, I know this for a fact, the biggest spenders in the household. So,
Controlling the economic spend of the United States. Yes, it is women who control that largely by the percentages, moms from a household purchasing perspective. And yes, it's interesting because we have quite a large women's health portfolio, and another company, Delphina, in the maternal health space, AI powered, maternal health platform that does maternal fetal monitoring to predict complications using AI, and then to create and execute a care plan, right, to help. Um, another great example, but I do think that women are half the population. So when we talk about underserved market, it's underserved absolutely from an investment perspective, but from a user perspective, it's maybe the greatest economic opportunity
wow.
of our time, right? It's to build for the other half of the population. And I'm so excited because a lot of the healthcare models currently have been trained using data that's not uh, diverse.
Hmm.
And you talk about Gabby, the breast cancer detection company I mentioned earlier. Their algorithm is built on the largest, most diverse data set in the world, which is so exciting, right? Because it's the current algorithms for breast cancer risk assessment were not trained using data of people who look like me.
Hmm.
And so that's just a really fundamentally exciting thing where, all this data exists. The ability to harness it, to structure it, and to use it uh, is where we're focused.
That's so cool, and that's a absolutely great sort of perspective and thesis. So thanks, Mary, for coming on. I'll let you get back to your idyllic life out in Midwest, and
Come visit us, please. And I thank you so much for this opportunity. It's such a fun conversation. And yes, to anyone listening, I really just it's inspiring to see opportunities in other places, and would just invite all of you to come spend time with us in Minnesota or virtually, right? breadandbutterventures.com is our website. And we do have open office hours there that you could book to have a virtual chat with any of our partners. We'd love to get to know you and just do more together. So thank you for the time, Johan.
you're welcome, Mary. Thank you.